Try not to stain the bus seats with your tears, Evelyn. They're only rentals. Tiana's voice dripped with the kind of advice that feels like a slap. Nathan let out a sharp, satisfied laugh from the driver's seat, a sound that echoed his relief. The words weren't just an insult. They implied that Evelyn's pain was as cheap and temporary as a rented chair. All of this, just minutes after they'd walked out of the lawyer's office, where their shared life had been officially erased. But in Evelyn's mind, there were no tears, only numbers. She was calculating. Calculating the money Nathan owed vendors, she knew personally. Calculating the value of the contracts she had helped him secure. Calculating the price of his betrayal. They were right about one thing. Everything was a rental. The car they were driving, the penthouse they were living in, the very career Nathan was so proud of. It was all built on a foundation she had merely let him borrow. And now the landlord was coming to collect. This bus ride was just a short trip to get the keys back. Whether you're watching this cozied up on your couch late at night or taking a break during your day, we have a feeling this story is about to get intense. Before we dive deeper into Evelyn's plan, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss a single moment of this takedown. And hey, based on this intro alone, how would you rate the coming storm on a scale of 1 to 10? Let us know in the comments below. Now let's get back to the story. The Atlanta sun hung low, casting a sticky haze over the cracked pavement of the bus stop on Peachtree Street. Evelyn stood alone, her tote bag slung over her shoulder, its canvas worn from years of quiet loyalty. The ink on the divorce papers she'd signed an hour ago still felt wet in her mind, each stroke a cut severing her from Nathan, the man who'd once promised her forever. Her fingers gripped an old phone, its screen chipped but glowing with a contact list she hadn't opened in months. The air smelled of exhaust and summer sweat, but she stood still, her posture unyielding despite the weight of the day. A low hum broke the silence. A sleek black BMW crawling past, its tinted windows glinting like a predator's eyes. The passenger window slid down, and Tiana's voice sliced through the heat. "Hope the bus has AC, sweetheart." Her laugh was sharp, a blade wrapped in velvet, as Nathan's chuckle followed from the driver's seat. The car lingered, deliberately slow, before speeding off, leaving a trail of dust and mockery in its wake. Evelyn didn't flinch. Her eyes followed the car, noting the license plate, Nathan 1. She tapped her phone, saving a screenshot of the moment, her thumb steady as stone. She could still see them in her mind. Nathan's smug grin, Tiana's toss of her head, her laughter echoing like a taunt meant to bury her. But Evelyn didn't crumble. She adjusted her tote, the weight of her notebook inside a quiet reminder of her own strength. The bus stop's metal bench was scalding, but she didn't sit. She stood, her shadow stretching long across the pavement, as if claiming the space they'd tried to strip from her. The world thought she was broken, a discarded wife left with nothing but a pity payment and a bus ticket. They were wrong. Evelyn's mind drifted to the early days, when she'd been Nathan's backbone, not just his wife. Years ago, when his tech startup was just a dream in a cramped apartment, she'd built his network from scratch. Florists for his launch parties, caterers for investor dinners, AV techs who trusted her word. She'd remembered their names, their kids' birthdays, their quirks. Nathan had climbed on her connections, but now, flush with success, he dismissed them as low-level. He'd forgotten her role, forgotten the woman who'd made his empire possible. But Evelyn hadn't. Her phone held the names of every vendor, every contact, each one a thread in a web he'd never seen. The bus screeched to a stop, its doors hissing open. Evelyn stepped aboard, ignoring the curious glances from passengers. She found a seat by the window, the glass cool against her cheek. Her phone buzzed in her hand, but she didn't check it. Not yet. Instead, she opened her contact list, scrolling through names. Maria, the florist who loved peonies. Jamal, the sound tech who hated late payments. Lisa, the caterer who'd once called Evelyn family. Nathan thought these people were beneath him now, replaceable cogs in his machine. He was wrong about that, too. Her fingers paused on a name. Caleb. Her brother, estranged for years, has a wound from their father's funeral still raw between them. But Caleb had always been her anchor, the one who'd slipped her candy during their mother's scoldings, who'd promised to protect her when the world felt too big. She typed a message, simple but heavy. Can we talk? She hit send before doubt could stop her, her heart thudding with a mix of fear and hope. The bus lurched forward, carrying her toward a rundown apartment she'd rented with Nathan's pity money, a temporary refuge, not a home. Inside the apartment, the air was stale, the furniture secondhand. Evelyn dropped her tote on a wobbly table, the notebook inside thudding softly. She sat, the chair creaking under her, and opened the notebook to a blank page. The pen felt like a weapon in her hand, its ink ready to rewrite her story. She wrote one line, her handwriting sharp. They think I'm broken. They're wrong. The words stared back, a vow to herself, a spark igniting in the ashes of her marriage. She closed the notebook, her mind racing. Nathan and Tiana had laughed, thinking they'd left her with nothing. But they'd left her with something far more dangerous. Time, memory, and a network they'd underestimated. Evelyn stood pacing the small room. The screenshot of Nathan's car burned in her mind, a small act of defiance that felt like the first step. She didn't know the full plan yet, but she felt its shape, a quiet, deliberate reclaiming of what was hers. Nathan had built his empire on her foundation, then cast her aside for Tiana's fleeting glamour. Tiana, who thrived on likes and followers, who saw Nathan as a ticket to relevance. They thought Evelyn was invisible, a shadow to be mocked. But shadows could move, could grow, could swallow the light. The phone buzzed again, Caleb's name lighting up the screen. She didn't answer, not yet. She needed this moment, this silence to let the spark catch fire. The bus ride, Tiana's taunt, Nathan's dismissal, they weren't the end. They were the beginning. Evelyn opened her laptop, the glow illuminating her face. She scrolled through her contacts again, each name a piece of a puzzle she was only starting to assemble. Maria, Jamal, Lisa, they weren't just vendors. They were allies, forgotten by Nathan but not by her. Outside, Atlanta hummed with life, cars honking, voices carrying through the night. Evelyn stood at the window, the city's pulse syncing with her own. She wasn't the woman Nathan had married, the one who'd smiled through his neglect, who'd ironed his shirts while he chased status. She was something new, something dangerous, not vengeful, not cruel, but strategic. Her silence wasn't weakness. It was a weapon honed by years of patience, sharpened by betrayal. She picked up her phone, rereading Caleb's reply. Tomorrow, coffee, name the place. A faint smile curved her lips, the first real one all day. She typed back, the usual spot, noon. Then she set the phone down, her fingers brushing the notebook. The spark had caught, and it was growing into something unstoppable. Nathan and Tiana had laughed as she stood at the bus stop, thinking they'd written her ending. They didn't know she was already writing theirs. The scent of roasted coffee beans filled the air at the Daily Grind, a small Atlanta cafe tucked between a bookstore and a laundromat. Evelyn sat by the window, her notebook open on the table, its single line from the night before. They think I'm broken. They're wrong. Staring back like a challenge. Her phone buzzed, Caleb's message confirming he was on his way. Noon, as promised. The bus stop humiliation still burned, Tiana's taunt echoing in her mind, but Evelyn's resolve had hardened overnight. Nathan's empire, built on her connections, was about to show its first cracks. Caleb walked in, his backpack slung over one shoulder, his steps quiet but purposeful. The years apart hadn't dulled their bond. His eyes softened when they met hers, a silent apology for the distance since their father's funeral. He slid into the booth across from her, setting his phone on the table. You okay? He asked, voice low, cutting through the cafe's hum. Evelyn didn't answer directly. Instead, she slid her phone toward him, the contact list open. Do you still know people in the event game? She asked, her tone steady but laced with intent. Caleb raised an eyebrow, reading her face. You're not just catching up, are you? Evelyn leaned forward, her voice a whisper. Nathan's planning a big app launch. It's his everything. I need to know who's still in his orbit. Caleb nodded, no questions asked, his fingers already tapping his phone to pull up old messages. He'd always been her protector, the one who'd shielded her from their father's temper, and now he saw the fire in her eyes. a fire he hadn't seen since they were kids. By the next day, Caleb was working his magic. Posing as a freelance marketer scoping out Atlanta's event scene, he met Maria, the florist Evelyn had once charmed with her knack for remembering client preferences. Over coffee at a different spot, Maria vented about Nathan's startup. "He's changed," she said, stirring her latte. "Late payments, snappy emails, acting like we're beneath him now." Caleb nodded, his phone discreetly recording. "Sounds sloppy," he said casually, steering the conversation. Maria spilled more. Nathan's app launch, a glitzy event to woo investors, was his make-or-break moment. One misstep could tank his reputation. Caleb met others from Evelyn's list. Jamal, the AV tech, who'd once fixed a sound system on a whim because Evelyn asked, and Lisa, the caterer who'd called her family. Each shared the same story. Nathan's arrogance had alienated them since Evelyn left. Payments delayed, contracts ignored, demands barked through assistants. Caleb played it cool, never mentioning Evelyn, just listening as the cracks in Nathan's empire revealed themselves. He sent Evelyn a voice note that evening. "He's slipping, Ev. This launch is his everything." Evelyn listened to the recording in her dim apartment, the city's glow seeping through the window. Caleb's voice, steady and sure, fueled her resolve. She opened her notebook, adding a new line. "Every empire has weak points." Nathan thought his success was his alone, but he'd forgotten the vendors who trusted Evelyn's word, the network she'd built with care. She scrolled through her contacts again, her fingers lingering on names Nathan had dismissed as low-level. They weren't low-level to her, they were leveraging. Caleb's next stop was a dive bar where Jamal, the AV tech, nursed a beer. "Nathan's team booked us for the launch, but they're nickel and diming us," Jamal grumbled. "I'd rather work with someone who respects my time." Caleb leaned in, casual. "Anyone else sniffing around for your crew?" Jamal shrugged, mentioning a small bakery event that had booked his best rig. "Evelyn's doing, though he didn't know it." Caleb sent her a text. "Jamal's pissed. You gotten in with him." Evelyn's reply was swift. "Keep listening." She was already moving, her mind mapping the connections. Nathan's launch relied on these vendors, and their frustration was her opening. She didn't need to sabotage overtly. She just needed to nudge, to remind them of the trust she'd earned. In her apartment, she opened her laptop, searching for freelance platforms. The idea of Evie was forming, a shadow identity to reclaim her power without Nathan's notice. She wrote another line in her notebook. "They'll see me when it's too late." Caleb, meanwhile, kept digging. At a food truck rally, he ran into Lisa, the caterer, who was fuming over Nathan's latest demand for a discount on her services. "He thinks he's too big for us now," she said, slicing through a sandwich order. Caleb nodded, his phone capturing every word. "Sounds like he's spread thin," he said, planting a seed. Lisa agreed, hinting that Nathan's investors were getting antsy about his sloppy planning. Caleb sent Evelyn the clip, adding, "He's got no idea how much he needs these people." Evelyn played the clip, her heart racing. Nathan's empire wasn't unbreakable. It was fragile, held together by the very people he'd alienated. She thought of Tiana, her taunt at the bus stop, her smug certainty that Evelyn was nothing. But Tiana didn't know about the contacts, the trust, the years Evelyn had spent building relationships that Nathan now took for granted. She texted Caleb, "Meet me tomorrow. We need a plan." Then she closed her laptop, the screen's glow fading as her resolve sharpened. Outside, Atlanta buzzed with late-night energy, but Evelyn felt a stillness within her. The bus stop had been a wound, but it had also been a spark. Caleb's recordings, the vendors' frustrations, they were the first cracks in Nathan's carefully curated world. Evelyn wasn't ready to strike yet, but she was preparing, gathering the pieces of a puzzle only she could see. Nathan and Tiana thought they'd left her behind, but they'd only pushed her to remember who she was, a woman who built empires, not just for others, but for herself. The glow of Evelyn's laptop cast flickering shadows across her cramped Atlanta apartment, the hum of the city outside barely penetrating the quiet. Caleb's voice note from the night before still echoed in her mind. "He's slipping, Ev. This launch is his everything." The recordings he'd sent, vendors venting about Nathan's arrogance, his late payments, his dismissal of their work, were kindling for the fire she'd felt since the bus stop. Evelyn opened her notebook, her pen tracing the words she'd written after their cafe meeting. Every empire has weak points. She was ready to test that theory. Her phone buzzed with Caleb's latest text. Jamal's pissed. You got an in with him. Evelyn's fingers hovered over the screen, her mind racing. Jamal, the AV tech, had once fixed a sound system for Nathan's first pitch because she'd asked, no questions. Maria, the florist, had trusted her to pick peonies for a gala. Lisa, the caterer, had called her family. These weren't just contacts. They were bonds Nathan had severed, but she could rekindle. She typed back to Caleb, keep listening, I'm starting now. Evelyn opened Upwork, her heart pounding as she created a profile under the alias EV. Just initials, no trace of her past. She crafted a bio that was sharp but vague. Event consultant with a knack for details and deadlines. Her first gig was small, scripting a ribbon cutting for a boutique in Midtown. She poured hours into it, mapping every detail, from the speaker's cues to the lighting. The client left a 5-star review. EV made it flawless. Evelyn read it in the dark, a flicker of pride cutting through her doubt. Could she really outmaneuver Nathan without losing herself? She took more gigs, connecting a cafe with a local supplier, planning a charity raffle. Each job was modest, but her precision, remembering a client's preference for vegan options or a vendor's tight schedule, earned glowing feedback. EV became a whispered name on freelance forums, a shadow consultant who delivered. Evelyn leaned into her old network, reaching out to Maria first. Heard you're swamped, she emailed, signing as EV. Need a hand with a last-minute order? Maria, unaware of the alias, replied eagerly, venting about Nathan's entitled demands. Evelyn smiled, steering the conversation to a bakery event she was consulting. By the end of the week, Maria had prioritized the bakery's order, pulling peonies from Nathan's launch. Caleb's next message came late, his voice low over a grainy recording. Lisa's done with Nathan. He tried to lowball her again. Evelyn listened, her pen scratching in her notebook. They're building my stage. She reached out to Lisa, offering EV's services for a small wedding Lisa was catering. Evelyn suggested a vendor overlap, ensuring Lisa's crew was booked the same day as Nathan's event. It wasn't sabotage, it was strategy. Nathan's vendors were choosing her clients, not because she forced them, but because she listened what he demanded. Her apartment became a command center, papers pinned to a corkboard, vendor names, schedules, Nathan's launch timeline pieced from Caleb's intel. She worked through the night, her laptop's glow her only companion. A pang of doubt hit as she sipped cold coffee. Was she becoming like Nathan, manipulating from the shadows? She shook it off, writing in her notebook, "Patience is my power." This wasn't revenge, it was reclamation. Nathan had built his empire on her connections, then cast her aside for Tiana's fleeting spotlight. Now she was taking back what was hers. Caleb's next update was gold. Nathan's freaking out. His florist bailed. Evelyn's pulse quickened. She'd nudged Maria to prioritize her client, but Nathan didn't know. He was unraveling, snapping at his team, blaming everyone but himself. Evelyn took another gig, this time for a charity auction, connecting them with Jamal's AV crew. Jamal, frustrated with Nathan's delays, agreed eagerly, pulling his best rig from Nathan's launch. Evelyn texted Caleb, "It's working, keep them talking." Caleb replied, "They're practically begging to ditch him." She leaned back, the city's hum filtering through her window. Each gig, each review, was a step toward rebuilding herself. But it wasn't just about money, it was about trust. The trust Nathan had squandered, the trust she was earning back. She thought of Tiana's laugh at the bus stop, Nathan's dismissive smirk. They thought she was nothing, a shadow to be mocked. But shadows could shift, could grow, could cover the light. Evelyn opened her laptop again, her fingers flying as she pitched EV for another job. The reviews were piling up, her name spreading in whispers. A late-night email from Maria pinged her inbox. "Thanks, EV, you saved us." Evelyn read it, her chest tightening with something new. Confidence, not just hope. She was no longer the woman who'd stood at the bus stop, swallowing humiliation. She was EV, a name that meant precision, trust, power. Caleb's final text of the night came through. Nathan's team is scrambling. You're in their heads. Evelyn replied, Good. Let's get deeper. She closed her notebook, the words, They'll see me when it's too late, staring back. The cracks in Nathan's empire were widening, and she was the one prying them open. Not with noise, but with the quiet strength of someone who'd been underestimated for too long. Outside, Atlanta's skyline glittered, a reminder of the world she was reclaiming, one connection at a time. The hum of Atlanta's morning traffic seeped through the glass walls of Nathan's sleek startup office, a modern loft buzzing with nervous energy. Evelyn's subtle moves as Evie had begun to ripple, just as she'd planned in her apartment the night before. Her notebook entry, They're building my stage, a quiet vow now coming to life. Caleb's text had confirmed it. Nathan's florist had bailed, prioritizing a bakery event Evelyn had orchestrated. The cracks she'd glimpsed in his empire were widening, and she was ready to nudge them further. Inside Nathan's office, papers littered the conference table, his young team scrambling under his glare. What do you mean the florist canceled? Nathan snapped, his voice cutting through the room. His assistant, a jittery 20-something, stammered. They took another gig, something last minute. Nathan slammed his coffee mug down, the liquid sloshing. Find another one. Now. Across town, Evelyn sat in her dimly lit apartment, her laptop open to an email from Maria, the florist. Thanks, Evie. That bakery job saved us. Evelyn's lips curved faintly. She hadn't forced Maria's choice. She'd simply offered a better one. Caleb's next update came over a secure signal message. AV team's out too. Jamal booked his rig for a wedding. Evelyn's pulse quickened. She'd connected Jamal's crew to a small wedding she was consulting for as EV, knowing it clashed with Nathan's app launch. She typed back, Keep them talking. Who else is fed up? Caleb's reply was swift. Everyone. Nathan's burning bridges. Evelyn leaned back, her notebook open. She wrote, He's digging his own grave. Nathan's office was a pressure cooker. His launch, a flashy app meant to dazzle investors, was teetering. The AV team's cancellation hit hard. Jamal's crew was the best in Atlanta, and backups were either booked or subpar. Nathan paced, barking orders at his team, who typed furiously to salvage the schedule. Tiana, sprawled on a leather couch in the corner, scrolled through her phone, her impatience spilling onto Instagram stories. Surrounded by incompetence, she posted, a selfie captioned with a rolling eyes emoji. Nathan shot her a look. Focus on the launch, not your followers, he growled. Tiana huffed, tossing her phone aside, her nails tapping the armrest. Evelyn, meanwhile, was moving pieces across her invisible board. She took another gig as EV, this time for a charity auction, connecting them with a caterer who'd once worked Nathan's events. Lisa, the caterer, jumped at the offer, frustrated by Nathan's latest lowball contract. He thinks we're desperate, Lisa had told EV over email. Evelyn's response was measured, professional, but her heart raced as she steered Lisa's crew away from Nathan's launch. Another pebble in his path, small but sharp. Nathan's suspicion was stirring. This isn't random, he muttered during a tense team meeting, his fingers drumming the table. Someone's poaching our vendors. His assistant suggested a rival startup, and Nathan latched onto the idea, ordering a deep dive into competitors. Caleb, tipped off by a contact in Nathan's circle, caught wind of the investigation. He met Evelyn at a quiet park bench that evening, his backpack slung low. He's sniffing around, Caleb warned, his voice low. Thinks it's that app company across town. Evelyn's eyes glinted. Let him. Send him their pitch deck. It'll keep him distracted. Caleb grinned, pulling out his phone to forward a fake document he'd mocked up, painting the rival as the culprit. You're scary when you're focused, he said. Evelyn didn't smile. He taught me how to play dirty. I'm just better at it. She opened her notebook, adding, Every misstep is his, not mine. The park's dusk settled around them, fireflies flickering like the sparks of her plan. Caleb's recordings, her vendor nudges. They were working, chipping away at Nathan's confidence. Back at the office, Nathan's frustration boiled over. He called Tiana into his glass-walled office, shutting the door. Your demands aren't helping, he snapped, referencing her insistence on extravagant decor, a gold-themed backdrop, imported orchids. Tiana crossed her arms. You want me to look cheap at your big moment? My followers expect luxury. Nathan's jaw tightened. Your followers won't save this launch if we don't have a stage. Tiana stormed out, posting another vague story. Some people can't handle pressure. Evelyn, checking her phone later, saw the post and wrote in her notebook, She's breaking him faster than I am. Evelyn's next move was bold but quiet. She pitched EV for a local tech conference, securing a slot for a vendor who'd once handled Nathan's lighting. The vendor, tired of Nathan's late payments, agreed instantly, pulling another resource from his launch. Evelyn's inbox pinged with a 5-star review. EV is a lifesaver. She read it, her chest tightening with resolve. She wasn't just surviving, she was thriving, building a name Nathan couldn't touch. But a flicker of doubt lingered. Was she crossing a line, becoming the manipulator she despised? She pushed it aside, texting Caleb, We're close. Find me one more. Caleb's reply came at midnight. Sound guy's wavering. Nathan's team ghosted him on payment. Evelyn's fingers flew across her laptop, drafting an offer to the sound tech for a community event she was consulting. She was weaving a web, each thread a vendor pulled from Nathan's grasp. The launch was still weeks away, but its foundation was crumbling, and Nathan didn't see her hand in it. Tiana's taunts, Nathan's smirk, they fueled her, but she stayed calm, her moves precise. In her apartment, the corkboard grew crowded. Vendor names, schedules, Nathan's timeline pinned like a battle map. She stood before it, the city's hum a distant pulse. Nathan thought he was untouchable, Tiana his glittering prize. But Evelyn was no longer the woman they'd mocked at the bus stop. She was EV, a shadow rising, her silence louder than their noise. She closed her notebook, the words, They'll see me when it's too late, a promise she was keeping. The Atlanta skyline glittered beyond Evelyn's apartment window, its lights a stark contrast to the dim glow of her laptop. Her corkboard, pinned with vendor names and Nathan's crumbling launch timeline, loomed like a war map in the corner. Caleb's midnight text from the night before. Sound guys wavering. Nathan's team ghosted him on payment. Had set her plan in motion. The pebbles she'd placed in Nathan's path, pulling his florist, AV crew, and caterer to her own gigs as EV, had left his app launch teetering. Now, Evelyn was ready to step deeper into his world, her notebook open to a new vow. They'll see me when it's too late. Nathan's office was a storm of chaos. Papers littered the floor, his team's frantic typing drowned out by his barked orders. The loss of Jamal's AV crew and Maria's flowers had rattled him, and now the sound text cancellation loomed. This is sabotage, Nathan hissed, pacing the glass-walled conference room. His assistant, pale and overworked, scrolled desperately through vendor lists. Tiana lounged in a corner, her phone a shield against the tension, but even she felt the pressure. Her latest Instagram story, a cryptic, "Some people can't deliver," had sparked a flurry of follower speculation, amplifying Nathan's stress. Fix this, or we're done, he snapped at his assistant, who nodded, eyes wide. Across town, Evelyn's phone pinged with a new Upwork notification. Nathan's assistant, under a generic company account, had found EV, the crisis consultant whose reviews glowed with praise for salvaging events. We need urgent help for a tech launch, the message read, offering a hefty fee. Evelyn's heart thudded, but her face stayed calm. She'd orchestrated the chaos, nudging vendors to her gigs, and now Nathan was handing her the keys to his kingdom. She replied as EV, professional and clipped, "Send me the details, I'll review." Within hours, Nathan's team emailed her everything. Budget breakdowns, guest lists, contingency plans. Evelyn leaned back, her pen scratching in her notebook. He's blind to me. Caleb met her at a dim diner that evening, his backpack slung low, a burner phone in hand. They're desperate, he said, sliding into the booth. Nathan's blaming everyone but himself. Tiana's pushing him to hire you. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. She's scared of looking bad online. Caleb nodded, passing her a USB drive with his latest recording, a sound tech ranting about Nathan's unpaid invoices. Use this, he said. They're begging for EV to save them. Evelyn pocketed the drive, her mind racing. She'd fix Nathan's mess, but only to tighten the trap. Back at her apartment, Evelyn pored over Nathan's event files. The guest list included tech moguls, investors, and influencers, people whose trust Nathan needed to keep his startup afloat. The budget was bloated, weighted by Tiana's demands for gold-themed decor and imported champagne. Evelyn saw her opening. She emailed Nathan's assistant as EV, suggesting a new caterer, Lisa, whom she'd already won over, and a backup AV crew she knew was reliable, but less flashy than Jamal's. Nathan's team, desperate, agreed instantly. Evelyn's fixes were seamless, earning a gushing reply. "You're a miracle worker, Evie." But Tiana's suspicion stirred. Late that night, she forwarded Evie's email to Nathan, her voice sharp. "Something about this feels off. The wording's too familiar." Nathan, exhausted, waved her off. "You're paranoid. She's saving our ass." Evelyn, anticipating this, had varied her email style, dropping her usual formal tone for a breezier one. She sent another message, casual and confident, quashing Tiana's doubt. Caleb texted her, "Close call. You good?" Evelyn replied, "Good. Let him stay blind." She wrote in her notebook, "Every trust he gives me is a rope around him." Nathan's office began to stabilize, his team praising Evie's efficiency. He took credit, boasting to investors about "our new consultant," unaware he was praising his ex-wife. Tiana, still uneasy, posted a vague story. "Trust your gut, not promises." Evelyn saw it, her lips twitching. Tiana's instincts were right, but too late. Evelyn was already inside, her access to Nathan's plans complete. She coordinated with Lisa, ensuring the catering was flawless, and secured a sound tech who owed her a favor. Each move bolstered Evie's reputation while tightening her grip on Nathan's fate. Caleb's next update came over a secure call, his voice low. "Nathan's cocky again, thinks Evie's got him covered." Evelyn nodded, her apartment's silence amplifying her focus. "He's handing me the stage," she said. Caleb paused, then asked, "You sure about this, Ev? Once you pull the trigger—" She cut him off. "I'm not pulling yet. I'm building." She hung up, her pen scratching. "They'll dance on my stage before they fall." The launch was weeks away, but Evelyn's web was nearly complete. She worked late, her laptop's glow a beacon in the dark. Lisa's crew, Jamal's team, Maria's flowers, they were hers now, loyal to EV's quiet reliability, not Nathan's arrogance. She thought of the bus stop, Tiana's taunt, Nathan's smirk. They'd underestimated her, but she was no longer the woman who'd stood in their shadow. She was EV, a name that meant control, precision, power. Evelyn closed her laptop, the city's hum a distant pulse. Caleb's burner phone buzzed with a final text. "One more vendor's out. Lighting guy, your move." She smiled, her plan crystallizing. Nathan's empire was crumbling, not with a crash, but with the soft clatter of pebbles she'd placed. She was ready to step into the spotlight, not as his wife, but as his reckoning. The Atlanta night pulsed with anticipation, the city's skyline a glittering backdrop to the sleek venue on Peachtree Street, its glass facade reflecting the glow of 1,000 lights. Inside, Nathan's app launch buzzed with the hum of tech moguls, investors, and influencers, their champagne flutes clinking under chandeliers. Evelyn, as Evie, had orchestrated the event's salvation, her calculated fixes, rebooking caterers, securing a sound tech, making Nathan's stage flawless. Her notebook entry from the night before, "They'll dance on my stage before they fall," burned in her mind as she slipped into the venue's shadows, unseen, her heart steady with purpose. Caleb's text from hours ago, "Lighting guy's set. You're clear," was the final piece of her plan, now ready to unfold. Nathan stood at the center of the room, his confidence restored, basking in the crowd's murmurs. Tiana by his side posed for selfies, her phone flashing as she posted to her followers, captioning the moment, "Big night, big wins." The event was a triumph. Every detail, Lisa's catering, the new AV crew, the gold-themed decor Tiana demanded, executed with precision. Nathan's team whispered praise for EV, unaware that Evelyn, the woman they'd mocked at the bus stop, was the architect. She lingered near the back, her presence cloaked by the crowd, her notebook tucked in her tote bag, its pages heavy with vows now coming to fruition. Caleb, stationed outside, monitored the venue's tech setup on a burner phone. His contact, a disgruntled lighting tech who'd once worked Nathan's events, ready at the controls. Evelyn had won the tech over with a gig for EV, exploiting Nathan's habit of stiffing vendors. "It's set," Caleb texted, his message a spark in the dark. Evelyn replied, "Wait for my signal." She moved through the crowd, her steps silent, her eyes scanning the room. Nathan took the stage, his voice booming through the microphone, smooth and commanding. "Tonight, we redefine tech in Atlanta," he declared, the LED screen behind him flashing his app's logo in bold blues and whites. The crowd clapped, investors nodding, Tiana beaming as she live-streamed his speech. Nathan's arrogance, tempered by weeks of chaos, had returned full force. He raised his glass, his grin wide. "A special thanks to Evie, our crisis consultant, who saved this night. We've never met, but you're a genius." The room erupted in applause, and Evelyn in the shadows felt her pulse quicken. The moment was here. She texted Caleb one word: "Now!" The LED screen flickered, Nathan's logo vanishing. A grainy dashcam video replaced it, the timestamp clear. The day of the divorce. Tiana's voice cut through the speakers, sharp and cruel. "Hope the bus has AC, sweetheart." Her laughter filled the room, followed by Nathan's chuckle, their BMW speeding away as Evelyn stood alone at the bus stop, her silhouette steady, unbowed. The crowd gasped, glasses clinking as heads turned. Nathan froze, his microphone trembling in his hand. Tiana's phone slipped from her fingers, her face paling as notifications flooded her screen. Followers turning, comments accusing. The video looped once, then cut to black. A single line appeared on the screen, stark against the darkness. "This event is sponsored by Patience. Regards, Evelyn." The room fell silent, a collective intake of breath as the truth sank in. Nathan's jaw slackened, his eyes darting to Tiana, who stood rooted, her live stream still running, broadcasting her humiliation. Whispers erupted, investors murmuring, influencers typing furiously, the word Evelyn spreading like wildfire. Evelyn, still in the shadows, felt no triumph, only clarity. This wasn't revenge. It was revelation. Nathan stammered into the microphone. "This is a mistake, a hack." But the crowd's mood had shifted, their trust fracturing. An investor in the front row stood shaking his head and headed for the exit. Tiana grabbed her phone, her fingers shaking as she deleted her live stream, but the damage was done. Her followers, once loyal, posted screenshots of the video, hashtags like "bus stop betrayal" trending within minutes. Evelyn slipped toward the back door, her tote bag light on her shoulder, her steps calm. She'd built this stage, and they danced exactly as she'd planned. Caleb met her outside, his face unreadable in the dim streetlight. "They're imploding," he said, nodding toward the venue's chaos. Evelyn didn't look back. "They did it to themselves," she replied, her voice steady. She handed him her burner phone, its screen dark. "Wipe it." Caleb nodded, pocketing the device. The lighting tech, now paid for Evie's gig, had ensured the video played flawlessly, a final nod to Evelyn's quiet power. She walked away, the city's pulse syncing with her own, her notebook's promise fulfilled. "They'll see me when it's too late." Inside, Nathan's team scrambled to shut down the screen, but the video had already spread, shared across platforms, dissected by bloggers. Tiana's phone buzzed with hate comments, her carefully curated image shattering. Nathan, still on stage, dropped the microphone, his empire crumbling under the weight of his own arrogance. Evelyn's name, once a whisper he'd dismissed, now echoed louder than his own. She'd been the shadow, the strategist, the woman they'd underestimated, and now she was gone, leaving them to face the fallout alone. The Atlanta skyline shimmered through the window of Evelyn's modest office, a small space above a bustling midtown cafe, its walls lined with plans for her new venture. The gala's fallout still reverberated. Nathan's app launch had collapsed under the weight of the viral video she'd orchestrated. Tiana's cruel taunt at the bus stop now a public scar. Evelyn's final act as Evie, revealing her identity on the LED screen with the words, "This event is sponsored by Patience." Regards, Evelyn had left Nathan and Tiana reeling, their reputations shredded. She'd walked away from the chaos, her tote bag light, her heart steady, but the city's pulse now felt like her own, a rhythm of renewal, not revenge. Evelyn sat at her desk, a laptop open to emails from clients, her notebook beside it, its final entry from the gala night. "They'll see me when it's too late," a closed chapter. She'd launched a small event planning firm focusing on community projects, youth coding workshops, local business openings, charity drives. Her first event, a coding camp for teens, had drawn praise from parents and sponsors, its success quiet but meaningful. She wasn't chasing Nathan's flashy empire. She was building something real, rooted in the trust she'd earned. Her phone buzzed with a message from Caleb. "Social's blowing up. They're done." She didn't reply, her focus on an email draft for a new client, her fingers steady. Across town, Nathan's world had unraveled. Investors had fled, pulling funding from his startup after the gala's humiliation went viral. Bloggers dissected the video, hashtags like Dash, bus stop betrayal, trending for days. His team scattered, his office now a hollow shell, its glass walls reflecting failure. Tiana had vanished, her influencer career in tatters as brand deals dried up and followers turned. She'd packed her bags, slamming the door on Nathan's rented apartment. Her final post, a vague apology that only fueled the backlash. Nathan, stripped of his swagger, took a job as a cashier at an electronics store. His days spent scanning barcodes, his nights haunted by Evelyn's name. Evelyn's office was a sanctuary, its walls pinned with schedules and thank you notes from clients. She'd hired a small team, a single mother for logistics, a former vendor for tech, each chosen for their grit, not their polish. Her firm, named Rise Events, was modest but growing, its focus on community impact setting it apart. She thought of the bus stop, Tiana's laugh, Nathan's smirk. They'd seen her as nothing, but she'd turned their dismissal into fuel. Now she was writing a new story, one where her silence spoke louder than their noise. Caleb stepped into the office, his backpack slung low, a coffee in hand. "Heard your name's trending again," he said, leaning against the doorframe. "They're calling you the Quiet Avenger online." Evelyn shook her head, a faint smile breaking through. "Let them talk. I'm done with noise." She handed him a printed flyer for her next event, a community fair for small businesses. Caleb scanned it, his eyes softening. "You're building something good, Ev." She nodded, her voice low. "It's not about them anymore. It's about this." But Evelyn wasn't finished with Nathan, not out of spite, but out of principle. She opened her laptop, drafting an email from Reese Events addressed to Nathan. It was a job offer, simple and professional, a junior coordinator role, entry level, managing logistics for small events. No mockery, no pity, just a chance to rebuild. She sent it, her fingers steady, then closed the laptop. Caleb raised an eyebrow. "You sure about this?" he asked, sipping his coffee. Evelyn leaned back, her voice calm. "I didn't take his future. I gave him a chance to earn it." Nathan received the email at the electronics store, his hands pausing over a scanner. The store's fluorescent lights buzzed above, a far cry from his old office's gleam. He read the offer, Evelyn's name at the bottom like a ghost from his past. His first instinct was anger. How dare she? But it faded, replaced by a hollow realization. He'd underestimated her, dismissed her, and now she held the pen to his story. He saved the email, not replying, but the seed was planted. Days later, he submitted an application, his pride a bitter pill swallowed in silence. Evelyn stepped off a bus that evening, her tote bag slung over her shoulder, the same route she'd taken after the divorce. The city moved around her, couples laughing, kids chasing each other, traffic humming, but she felt a stillness within. She walked to a park bench, the same one where she'd once sat, tears hidden behind sunglasses after Nathan's betrayal. Now she sat again, her notebook in her lap, its pages filled with vows she'd kept. She didn't open it. Instead, she watched a family play nearby, their laughter a reminder of what she'd built. Not an empire of flash, but one of purpose. Caleb called as she sat there. his voice light. Nathan applied. You called it. Evelyn's lips curved. Let him start over. Everyone deserves that. She ended the call, her eyes on the horizon. The bus stop, the gala, the video. They were steps in a journey that had led her here, to a life she'd shaped. Nathan and Tiana had laughed, thinking they'd written her ending. But Evelyn had rewritten it, not with anger, but with patience. Her silence the loudest triumph. As Evelyn steps into her new future, her quiet triumph echoes louder than any applause. What did her journey spark in you? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear how this story moved you. Thank you for joining us on this ride through betrayal and redemption. Stay tuned for more stories that inspire, and we'll see you next time.